Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I'm Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm Trish.
And today we will be playing the second part of Bernard's auto-RPG, Skies of Arcadia, covering the portion in Valua City. But before we get started, how was everyone's week?
So, you remember how when Trish was guest on this show, I played Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, and then my emulator wasn't working, so I had to start all over.
Yes.
I had to start Skies of Arcadia all over.
Oh.
Emulating the Dreamcast version, it's just not a good idea, folks.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't be like me. Emulate the GameCube version. Or purchase the official re-release, which has surely come out by the time you're listening to this in the future.
Mm-hmm.
One would hope.
But yeah, so I was like, I'm not sure exactly where we're going to stop, but I'll play early so I can let y'all know. And I did play early, and I got almost to the very end of the section. But then the game just basically stopped working. So I started all over. And I guess I was just reliving my childhood experience of playing this section of the game over and over.
Yeah, what was the boss that you died on all the time? The one at the end of our portion today? Because I died on that one all the time. It took me like 5 tries.
Actually, that's interesting because I remember the boss I died on and couldn't get past for a long time being Blagok. But Blagok is not hard.
Blagok was like, I wouldn't say was hard, remarkably hard, because all the bosses have been kind of hard. Mm-hmm. But when it does that poison bile attack, it is extremely frustrating, especially because poison is not a joke in this game.
Yeah. No. But like, Blagok is not as hard as the other bosses, in my opinion. So I wonder if like I actually would beat Blagok, then get to the next boss, which is immediately after, and then that's where I was actually getting stopped. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Blagok was hard, but I beat it first try. But I beat it first try by burning through all of my items, thinking, this is obviously the end of section boss. Surely there will be literally any time before the next boss. But they do have are you sure you want to go up, or do you want to make some preparations? So I smartly turned around and I went and I saved in between. So then when I got my ass handed to me like four times, I could reload my save to run back to town, where there are no item shops. So there was an inn, so I was able to stay at the inn and run for most of the fights to go back. I could not find it. I could not find it.
It's actually, here's the thing. I didn't find it originally. I found it where I was lost for a little bit, and I had to look up where to go, and the guide mentioned where the item shop is. I didn't save after the gross sewer monster. Even though it gave me that warning, I went right on to the next boss, and I actually beat it first try somehow.
Nice.
So hearing this does make me feel like, oh, okay. So all my fumbling around, I guess I still did okay. Because damn, that boss is fucking hard.
Interestingly, I when I was playing on Dreamcast, I was able to get just far enough to beat the boss. And it took me like 5 tries. But then when I played through on GameCube, I beat it first try. So maybe just like my strategic brain had clicked with it or something.
I also know that using its well, we haven't even started talking about the plot yet, but we're discussing the final boss because all of us played it in the last little bit. But it's fuck you move, it's charge or whatever, where it does
it's like so awful.
1,000. Its RNG is all over the place. The time that I won it when I retrying with my like leveled up in a more healed party and all of those things, and my third try everybody was alive. None of the heals ever went off. None of the charges ever went off, and it kind of was pretty good. So maybe your GameCube run through was lucky, and your Dreamcast one was not.
Perhaps.
I mean, it used that tackle move on me, I think 3 or 4 different times. And it's just immediate, like, well, I gotta heal up.
It's like, hey, you know how Drachma has this move called tackle, and you've really been enjoying how strong it is? Well, fuck you. Here's someone who can do it better.
But yeah, stay tuned for us to have the rest of this conversation when we get there at the end. But anything else cool happen during your week, Bernard?
No.
Yeah. I recorded a JRPG Canon episode with Sailor Eli last night. It was awesome. And while we were doing it, I referenced my thing I've said a bunch of times about how all video games are either Zork or Space Invaders. And I realized because we were doing this because we didn't play Lasers and Feelings this week, that in Lasers and Feelings, every character is determined by a number, which is how lasers or how feelings they are, because everybody is a mixture of lasers and feelings. And video games are all a mixture of lasers and feelings. And so if your game is more Space Invaders, it's a lasers, and if it's more Zork, it's a feelings. And every game can fall in this thing, and everything that is more feelings than lasers I consider an RPG of some sort. So visual novels are RPG adjacent because they're all about feelings. Technically, RPGs are visual novel adjacent. RPGs fall more on the laser side than visual novels do. But yeah,
your taxonomy is fascinating.
Yeah, and the worst part is it's kind of true. it feels like a bit, and it actually kind of makes games make sense. But yeah. Other than that, I watched Star Wars Episode 6 with my partner during my rewatch, their first watch, and I did it the cool way, where you watch the theatrical cut using Harmy's Despecialized Edition. You watch that up until they blow up the Death Star, and then you switch over to Disney Plus to watch the special edition, so you can have the better celebration scenes and Hayden Christensen as a Force Ghost, because those are the only 2 good changes out of all 3 movies of the special edition. So you jump to those to get the good stuff, and you definitely don't start Return of the Jedi, which has the absolute worst changes of the special editions, which is the 5-minute musical number in Jabba's Palace.
I was gonna say that thing's like.
I always liked Hayden Christensen as a Force Ghost, because when it's guy who played Vader in that movie, it's like we saw him for like one scene, half his face was covered, he was in heavy makeup. I do not recognize him as a Force Ghost. I'm like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah. When we made the switch, for those playing at home, you should make the switch when the Death Star blows up if you want to watch the ultimate Return of the Jedi. But if you we made it a little bit earlier. We did it when he threw the Emperor over. And I was like, oh man, I should have waited until after he blew it up, because I wanted to see the miniatures of blowing up the Death Star. The miniatures blowing up the Death Star is the only space scene in the special editions that they didn't redo in the CG. It's so good in miniatures. Like we couldn't beat this. It looks fantastic. We're just going to keep it exactly like this. It's like you see him outside flying, and it is prequel era craziness going on with CG, and then Lando goes inside the Death Star, and it's miniatures. Just being really fucking good.
I love how shit looks in the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
God,
It's
shit
so
looks
good.
so good there.
But yeah, I then also found a fan edit of Rise of Skywalker called Rise of Skywalker Ascendant, specifically the Rey Nobody edition, that salvages a pretty good movie out of Rise of Skywalker. So when we get there for my partner, we're going to watch the theatrical version because you got to know it's canon for whatever the next Rey movie is going to be in 2026. But in my rewatches, I don't want to watch all of the things that make me mad, and so this fan edit has some like actual good like special effects and stuff. Like one of the things is um they edit in force ghosts of Luke, Obi-Wan, and Anakin behind Rey, like Goku behind Gohan for the big final push or whatever, and it looks legit as if the actors were there. I have no idea how they pulled it off, but it's fantastic. And so it's actually very well made, and I'm kind of excited to watch Rise of Skywalker in the fact that it'll be in this fan edit, and I can focus on the parts that I like. When I originally saw it, I remember talking to Maddie because Maddie was like, "You're going to hate this movie and then love this movie and then hate this movie again." And I remember talking to Maddie about all the parts that I really, really liked, and it's just the ones that I really, really hate that have stuck with me. And so this fan edit should hopefully let me just play the hits of the movie.
I still have not watched that movie, but every single bit of information I've learned about it has made me angry.
Yeah. I did see it. The circumstances of seeing it were not great. Hearing that there are things you liked about it, I can vaguely recall there are a few things I kind of enjoyed. There's nothing I like really enjoyed about that movie. The fact that you had enough things that you liked that they could make a fan edit that like salvaged it in some way, that makes me really happy for you. I don't think that's possible for me, but it makes me very happy on your behalf.
I will say it still probably will be my least favorite one, but I'll actually be able to watch all 9 movies now. The plan with my partner, because our birthdays are 8 weeks apart, and so we can watch all 8 Star Wars movies. It's a shame they never made a 9th one. Has been my joke this whole time, that I didn't want to ruin their birthday by watching episode 9. So we're going to watch it outside of Star Wars season, just like eventually, like, oh hey, let's go and actually finish it. But now, if I were to do another marathon, we could end it on a kind of high note that goes in and salvages a lot of it. Just like in the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi has some great parts, but it's the weakest of the 3. And so it's kind of the same thing. We're like, oh, it has a good enough ending that it's fun to watch, and you can watch the whole trilogy, and it'll be fine, even though you have some weakness in the middle. It'll do that for the sequel trilogy instead of just completely skipping the movie because it's stupid. But I will report back after I watch it to see if it's a full recommendation. But as it is right now, that's the one that, looking at all the changes, that seem to be the coolest looking one so far.
My plan has always been, if I do a full watch of all the Star Wars movies, that at the end I would just watch Knives Out.
Honestly, excellent choice.
Yeah, do that. If you decide to not actually ever watch Rise of Skywalker, the ending of Last Jedi actually is a really good saga ender, because it just leaves it on like a hopeful thing for the future.
Continue.
Yeah, and I actually I am not upset at the fact that that's where I'm leaving it off when me and Cassie watch it, but I'm excited to see if I can enjoy something using footage from The Rise of Skywalker, which so far the other thing I've seen with footage from The Rise of Skywalker I have not enjoyed. So, what about you, Trish? What's your week been like?
I was ready to say my week's been really boring. There's nothing to really talk about, but there was something, and hearing your Star Wars rant kind of activated a rant inside of me that I forgot had been laying dormant.
Go for it.
This happens every so I don't know how much either of you know about the Cosmere.
The what?
I know a lot about it.
Okay, so for Bernard and listeners' sake, Cosmere is a author Brandon Sanderson, man who cannot stop writing books for the life of him, the anti-George R.R. Martin. A lot of his books, not all of them, but a lot of them all take place in the same universe with different series taking place on different planets in the same galaxy. There's a shared cosmos, there's a shared connecting plot threads and characters. It's neat. I haven't read all of it, but I really enjoy a lot of what I have read. The Stormlight Archive in particular is probably at this point has become my favorite book series. Despite some big flaws in it, it's just so absolutely fantastic and it hits me in the feels hard as hell. But the thing is, I started at Stormlight Archive. That's where I got into the Cosmere. Okay, so yeah, you brought up the thing with Star Wars of like watching orders and like, there's the machete cut idea of like, you go 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, etc. Like things like that. And it just reminded me of, because someone bugged me about this on a server recently, the fact that I started with Stormlight Archive, and that's not how you read the Cosmere. Don't you know? This is the reading order for the Cosmere. You need to read this series, then this, in this order. And I just hate that with all of my heart. And I say, like, no, I will read this in whatever order I want. And the more people try to shove this is how you're supposed to go through this series at me, the more I want to do the opposite of what they say out of just pure spite.
Yeah, start with Rhythm of War and then go from there.
I mean, like, because here's the thing. So, I mean, you say that, but like another series, which I used to be hugely into, not as much into these days for some reasons, but Dresden Files. That is a series that when I got into that series, I got into it in the old school method of whatever order I could find the books in. And so I read like I read the 7th book first, and then the 9th book, and then the 2nd book. And like I just like leapfrogged around the order of the books. And like it's okay to do that. You can read things out of order, you can experience things out of order. And like yeah, you're going to get some spoilers, but for me personally, spoilers are not the worst thing in the world, and it can lead to having really weird, interesting experiences with those stories. And so I just despise people being like, "Oh, well, this is the best reading order." Like, yeah, fuck it. Start with Rhythm of War. You won't know what's going on, but it's fine. You'll get it.
Yeah.
Play Trails to Azure first.
Yes. Like especially with the Cosmere, Brandon does not say you should read Warbreaker and then Elantris and then Mistborn and then White Sands and then Stormlight Archive or whatever. He's like, every single first book stands alone. All of the multiversal things, like he described wanting to do Cosmere as these are things that are happening in the background and we don't ever really get to see that in the foreground, and it's like the MCU, but it's only the post-credit scenes and none of the Avengers movies. That's his whole idea behind the Cosmere. Therefore, there is no proper reading order. You just read any of them and you get little snippets. And then as you read all of them, your snippets start to form a whole picture. It's the stupidest one for people to say this is the proper way to experience it.
Agreed. In fact, my only downside to starting with Stormlight Archive is it does mean going back and reading other series, especially the original Mistborn books, was kind of a like, oh, I am stepping back in time. I have gone from like Brandon at his peak to Brandon just starting out and working through his craft a little bit. Because like the Mistborn books are good. I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're definitely rough in places. And I can like see where he's grown as a writer in a number of areas, which is interesting. But it's also just like wow, I wonder how much I would have liked this if I'd read it first and not started Stormlight. But I mean, I'm glad I started Stormlight because I got my my wonderful queer mentally ill found family.
Yes. I love Power Rangers, except most of them are gay and all of them are mentally ill, and there's a hurricane every 14 days.
All of them, well, there and yes, that's like the main cast, and then there's Adolin. Adolin is their golden retriever. He is their emotional support boy.
Love him,
and I love him.
Love him. All right, and with that, let's listen to some music from Skies of Arcadia, and we'll talk about the plot.
So, when we last left our heroes, they had just set sail to save their friends and family from the evil Valuan Empire. However, on the way, something happens. Visibility plummets, and they almost hit a strange island. Except, it's not an island at all. It's an arc whale. There are things called arc whales. They're like whales, but what if whales were big? Before Vice and Ike can retreat, the arc whale knocks their tiny boat out of the sky, surely killing them both. But then they wake up on a rickety old ship. Someone saved them. Their savior turns out to be a grouchy old man with a giant mechanical arm, and he is not happy that saving these kids caused him to lose track of the arc whale, which he calls Rocknum. Vice thanks him for the rescue, and he just punches the fuck out of Vice. He says they'll need to pull their weight on his ship. What have our heroes gotten themselves into this time? The man assigns Vice some manual labor, and partway through they get to talking. Vice explains that they need to get to Valua to save their comrades. The man's like, well, good luck with all that. I've got to focus on Rocknum. Vice asks why he's after the arc whale, but he just tells him to get back to work. After some more work, the man tells Vice to take the wheel and sail them to Sailor's Island. He's quickly impressed by Vice's knowledge of boat stuff. Vice finally gets him to share his name, and the name of his ship. He is Captain Ahab of the Pequod. I mean, Captain Drachma of the Little Jack. Drachma has joined the party. On the way to Sailor's Island, the gang is stopped by the introduction to a GameCube-only collection side quest. It's not important.
Oh, this is GameCube only? Okay.
Yeah, this was added in Skies of Arcadia Legends, and I don't know if it gets interesting if you get all the collectibles, but if it does, we'll talk about it. They reach Sailor's Island, and Drachma is like, okay, you two can stay here, you're not my problem anymore. He's got to find a way to locate and kill Rocknum. Drachma has left the party. He heads into the pub. Vice and Ika decide to go around and talk to all the NPCs in this town, because that's what you do in a JRPG.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, they meet the ship parts merchant, a goofy guy who has a Geordie LaForge visor for some reason. He tells them about a rumor he's heard. Apparently, in Valua, there's a ship parts merchant who sells an incredibly powerful weapon called a harpoon cannon. Vice and Ika are like, that's interesting. They head to the pub and are like, hey, Captain Drachma, shame you're not our captain anymore. If you were, we'd tell you about this great weapon we heard about that would probably be great for killing arc whales, but you're not, so oh well. There's a lot of dialogue with the pub's owner, but in short, Drachma has joined the party. Huzzah! Vice and Ika do their secret handshake. However, Drachma says they'll need a Valuan passport to get in. They go next door, ask if anyone can get them a Valuan passport, and a merchant walks up and is like, hey, I've got a Valuan passport I'm not using. In return, he wants them to escort him to the nearby nation of Nasr, a route which has been terrorized by a black pirate, Baltor. The gang accepts and heads to the Little Jack. They escort the merchant ship in the Little Jack, and sure enough, they are attacked by the black pirate Baltor in his ship, the Blackbeard. This is our introduction to the game's other battle system, ship battles. What do y'all think of ship battles?
I think the rules as written are pretty cool. I think playing them is really boring, and it doesn't seem to be as cool as it seems the rules would be, if that makes sense. I like being able to pick who goes when. I like to be able to being able to pick like what they're doing. I like to be able to do all the cool little different things that you can do with the 3x3 turn grid thing. But like the push and the pull and the rocks and the papers and the scissors and all of that stuff aren't very well telegraphed, so it basically feels like educated guess mashing for things that aren't super obviously telegraphed, like shoot on turn 2 and use your mega harpoon on turn 3 or whatever. Like everything else is like, oh, this one is just blue, so I can guard or whatever because they're not going to attack, and then they attack anyways. And then on the yellow, which is when they're supposed to attack, they'll like not do that or whatever. And it's like, I don't fucking know anymore.
I didn't dislike it necessarily. I think your criticisms are definitely valid. I had a little bit of struggle in some bits. I never felt like I was really doing well necessarily, but I enjoyed the novelty of it. I also enjoy the rules as written. Honestly, the biggest thing that makes me that kind of bumps it up for me is just the fun of if you go to cast a spell in ship combat, instead of your characters actually casting a spell, the spell gets reflavored as like a maneuver that you're doing. So if like you cast a healing spell, they're like, oh, we're gonna take a second to do some repairs on the ship, and I'm like, that's really cool. I really enjoy that.
That's really cool. I keep forgetting to do the spells before like my third turn where I don't have any action points, so I never actually got around to using them, but it is very cute.
I don't remember if the ship battle system blossoms in any way. I'm pretty sure the general opinion is that it's not the most fun part of the game.
Yeah. I would probably play like an airship battling game that like this was the main this got all of the development time, and the because the rules as written are pretty cool. It just while doing it, it's not that interesting. But I would probably play a airship combat game just like this.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, our heroes defeat Baltor, and he sails away in a flaming ship, swearing vengeance. Weiss and Ica do their secret handshake again, and Drachma whacks Weiss upside the head for taking his hands off the wheel and doing the secret handshake again in such a short period of time, lessening the payoff for when it does happen.
It's so good.
The gang escorts the merchant the rest of the way to Nasr, and he gives them the passport. The gang sets sail for Valua. The continent is surrounded by impassable mountains, and the only way in is a massive gate, which is part of the impenetrable Grand Fortress. Drachma says that during the Valua-Nasr War, 100 Nasr ships fired upon the Grand Fortress for days, but couldn't scratch it. The gate opens, and we see that one side is absolutely covered in cannons. I don't remember much about this game, but I remember the one thing we all remember about Chekhov, so I'm pretty sure those are going to be relevant at some point. Anyway, Drachma says the gate only opens once a day, and that no prisoners ever escaped. Weiss says no one's ever escaped because he's never tried. The Little Jack sails inside, and we cut to Galcian and Ramirez in a meeting with the admirals of the Valuan Armada. He says they've captured a citizen of the Silver Civilization. We are rapid-fire introduced to the admirals. There's Alfonso, who tries to take credit for capturing Fina. There's Gregorio, an old dude who seems level-headed. There's Vigoro, a fucking 1950s greaser who asks of the captured silver citizen, how old is she? Is she good looking? Does she wear leather? I like my women wild and crazy.
It's one hell of a line.
Yep. There's Bellezza, the only lady whose personality so far seems to be lady.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Last and least, there's DeLoco, head of weapons development and an obvious mad scientist archetype.
Mm-hmm.
This had such a One Piece vibe to it. Let's cut over and we're gonna meet this group of bad guys. We're not gonna get to know them very well, but let's get a brief introduction to all of them. There's one woman among them. It just very strong One Piece vibes, which is not the only time in this section there are One Piece vibes. Go ahead.
Also, I find it hilarious that, there's apparently, we'll learn later, there's 6 MacGuffins, and here, including Galcian, we have 6 admirals. I wonder if we're going to fight one in each place we go to.
Couldn't it be? That's just coincidence.
I don't actually remember, but that seems to be how it's being set up. Galcian says Fina will help them in their mission, and that he's going to head back to the Imperial Palace to await Empress Theodora's orders to commence the search for the moon crystals. Then he's like, oh, by the way, Alfonso, you motherfucker, you lied in your report. You are now relieved of your position as commander of the Mid-Ocean Fleet, and for an indefinite period of time, you shall be confined to Ixataka. Turns out the air pirates released the crew of Alfonso's ship, and they just found their way back to Valua and told the real story of what happened. So suck it, Alfonso.
I love that so much.
It's pretty great. Galcian is bad, but he does stick it to Alfonso, so that's nice.
Yeah.
The Little Jack passes the Grand Fortress, and we see the capital city of Valua. Drachma explains the severe inequality here. The poor live in the shithole Lower Valua, and the rich live in the magnificent pleasure paradise of Upper Valua. If you haven't been playing along, which you should be, you might think this means this is a Final Fantasy VII Midgar situation, but no, the upper and lower are figurative. Upper Valua is on the left, and Lower Valua is on the right.
I did think it was funny when I was getting through this part that in the history it was like, oh, they wanted to react to Final Fantasy VII being so dark, and they wanted it to be so happy. So the first major city you go to is Midgar again.
Yeah, Lower Valua is not a bright and happy place, and you spend a good bit of time there. And in the middle of Valua, and I'm not sure, but I think it might be sort of floating on its own separate island. You can't really tell because of the graphics, is the Imperial Palace. Also, they note that the city is shrouded in eternal darkness, Sanity's Requiem, because of the constant storms caused by the yellow moon. Drachma instructs Weiss to dock in Lower Valua, where he can get the Little Jack repaired and upgraded. While Drachma oversees the installation of the harpoon cannon, Weiss and Aika explore Lower Valua. It's really shitty. The graphics and music are depressing. Weiss and Aika run into a kid who insults them a bit, and they're like, get a load of this brat, this worthless asshole, this absolute trash pile of a human. We hate you and hope you die. The kid's like, what the fuck? Also, my name is Marco, and I'm going to be relevant later.
The best part is, like, obviously Bernard hammed it up, but he did not exaggerate. He used different words to make it more funny, but they go this hard on this little boy.
It's ridiculous because it's like he's being like, oh, life is so fucking hard here. There's no point in living. Like, just like talk about like the obvious inequality that we can see everywhere. The fact that these people have no hope, and our main character's like, yeah, why don't you just put yourself up by your fucking bootstraps, kid?
It's a weird scene. Anyway, Weiss and Aika hear from an NPC that tomorrow there's going to be an execution at the Colosseum for some air pirates. Uh-oh. Weiss and Aika head to the inn, and we have a great scene where they briefly just talk about how tired and worried they are. Drachma arrives, and the three decide to sneak into the Colosseum tomorrow to rescue the air pirates. But they hear someone outside the window. Someone was eavesdropping! After them! Weiss catches the eavesdropper as they're trying to escape into a hole in the ground, and finds it's Marco, the kid they unnecessarily antagonized before. He says he heard everything they said, and if he were to rat on them to the guards, they'd be executed. Drachma's like, well, we gotta kill you then. Marco says, whatever, go ahead and kill me. No one will miss me, and I have nothing to live for, and I bet you won't even do it because you're chicken. Drachma's like, cool. Ika's like, let's maybe not kill the child. Vice asks Marco where the hole in the ground leads. Marco says it leads to the catacombs under the city, which have supposedly been there since the old world. Now they're just sewers, and his home. Vice asks if you can use them to get into the Colosseum. Marco's like, yeah, but, you can't actually succeed at your crazy idea. You're gonna get caught. You should just give up and go home. Vice gives Marco a speech about not giving up. In the speech, he still manages to unnecessarily antagonize Marco a bit. He also tells Marco to go to the Colosseum tomorrow so he can see them overcome the odds and save their friends. Our heroes head back to the inn and rest. The next morning, it's time for a sewer dungeon. So we go through the catacombs / the sewers, and at the end, there's a random end of dungeon final boss we already talked about, and they didn't even need to do one of those this time, because there's about to be another final boss at the end of this dungeon. So I don't know why they did the thing where you put a random unnecessary boss at the end of the dungeon. But we get to hear the good boss music.
Because someone designed that creature and they had to put it somewhere.
I guess.
Which, I mean, listen, it is kind of a cool design. I enjoyed the skeletons floating inside of its mass.
Mm-hmm. Aren't we all a skeleton floating inside of a mass?
Yes.
Anyway, our heroes defeat Blagok, the giant blob thing, and climb the ladder behind it. We see the Colosseum, where a soldier is leading Dine to an executioner. But then our heroes burst out of the ground and start wrecking up the place. The air pirates escape into the catacombs, and the executioner attacks us. Time for another boss battle, and this one, as we've already discussed, is hard.
It's very, very hard.
This man hits like a tank, and he came with 2 backup mages.
Yeah, he would be hard enough by himself, but he's not by himself.
You'd think his job is to kill defenseless people, but apparently he also was cross-trained on killing armed people, because he's good at that too. After kicking the executioner's ass, Vice bows for the crowd and heads back into the catacombs. He finds Marco, who has opened up a secret door for the air pirates to escape through. Vice heads in and speaks with Dine. After a brief but heartwarming reunion, Vice realizes Fina is nowhere to be seen. Dine says from what the soldiers were saying, it sounded like she was being taken to the Imperial Palace.
And then Vice and Ika are like, well, we've got to go save our girlfriend.
Yep. We've known her for 2 scenes, but we like her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're very good friends, TM.
Yes.
They were roommates.
They were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates. Vice states his determination to save Fina. Drachma says he'll take the air pirates back to the Little Jack while Vice and Ika go do their hero business. He says they need to head to the upper city where they can sneak aboard a rail car to the Imperial Palace. Drachma has left the party. Marco stops Vice before he can leave the catacombs. He pleads with Vice to not go to Upper Valua. He says his parents were killed trying to escape Valua, and that Vice has to give up. It's impossible to escape. Vice gives another speech about not giving up. He says impossible is just a word people use to feel good about themselves when they quit.
What a good line.
It is a good line. I'm also I can't help being like, yeah, it's really easy for you to say, Vice. You didn't grow up in this systemic oppression that Marco has. But, whatever, sure. Nothing's impossible.
Yeah, optimism is badass. It is a great line.
Also, I find it funny that in a short bit, they're going to see a challenge and be like, oh, we've got to run from that challenge.
Right?
Which they were correct.
Yes.
They Absolutely. Were correct to run.
I mean, yes, I love that moment.
Marco asks if he could ever be a sailor. Vice says, of course, I'll be waiting for you out there. He doesn't, offer to take the starving orphan with him and make him a member of his crew and all that, which feels weird to me, But whatever.
Yeah, I definitely thought that's where that was going. And then he was just like, good luck starving, kid.
Yeah, the kid has nothing tying him to this city and wants to be a sailor. It feels so much, and he clearly has started looking up to Vice. It feels like he's going to take him under his wing, but no.
Nope.
Maybe once you actually do get your own ship, you can recruit him. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
We cut to the Imperial Palace throne room. Galcian presents Fina to Empress Theodora I. The Empress says soon the Valuan Empire will rule the world. All who oppose them will be reduced to dust, with Fina's assistance. The Prince of Valua, Enrique, is like, Mom, that sounds a little crazy. You gotta think about the will of the people. The Empress tells Enrique he needs to get over such trivial concerns if he's going to take the throne. She turns back to Fina.
Caring about human rights.
Right?
How dare you?
Enrique, he doesn't understand how shit works. The Empress turns back to Fina and says she knows that there are 6 moon crystals scattered across the world, and that he who controls them also controls weapons of mass destruction known as the Gigas, which Valua can use to take over the world. Fina says she'll die before she tells them where to find the moon crystals. She says humans must never be allowed to control the Gigas again, especially not power-hungry dictators like the Empress. The Empress is furious and orders that Fina be killed. Enrique's like, hey, calm down, don't kill her. A soldier steps forward and knocks Fina down, but then a guard rushes in with news which seems to distract everyone from killing Fina. The Blue Rogues have escaped. Galcian says he's on his way. He orders that Fina be taken to the Grand Fortress immediately. He tells the Empress he will use Fina to find the moon crystals with the power of the Armada. He also, because things aren't urgent, like it's not like prisoners escaped and are in the process of escaping right now and we need to catch them. He also takes a moment to discuss the hierarchical makeup of the Armada's command structure. He asks that a new addition be made to the highest ranking officers, specifically his vice captain Ramirez. Fina gasps. The Empress is like, do whatever you want.
Do you think she actually gives a fuck about day-to-day management of this operation?
Yeah.
Her sights are a little more focused on something else.
But Galcian just wants the paperwork done properly.
He has that kind of energy to him. He has things filed in triplicate.
Yes. But notably, Fina ponders the name Ramirez. Vice and Ica emerge onto the streets of Upper Valua and can interact with some rich assholes if they want. But then they see Fina being loaded into a rail car. They've got to save her, but the rail car's already departing. They have to jump from a bridge onto the top of the rail car. Scary. Vice lands like a cool badass while Ica faceplants like an idiot. It's great.
It's so good. She has the swirly eyes.
Yeah, and I have in my notes here, the girl got the slapstick pratfall. Progressive? We cut to the Colosseum, where Galcian receives a report of air pirates snooping around the rail cars. He knows they must be trying to rescue Fina. He tells them to close the Grand Fortress gates and dispatch the Imperial rail car immediately. He will deal with the air pirates himself. Uh-oh. Vice and Ica run along the top of the train, fighting guards as they go. The graphics here rule. My notes say Final Fantasy VII Wishes.
It's
Absolutely.
so good. The set piece moments in this game are so viscerally enjoyable. And the way it transitions between gameplay and cutscene feels not seamless, but almost seamless. Like it flows perfectly.
But then another train starts bumping up against theirs. Galcian leaps onto Vice and Ica's train. He dramatically throws off his cloak and reveals his full character design, and the sword is as big as he is. Ika's like, there's something about that guy. I don't think we can take him. And Vice is like, yeah, let's book it. They book it. If you want, you can go and try to fight him and get spoiled on his boss fight music, but you will not win.
It is refreshing to have protagonists who can look at a boss and go, no. I have survival instincts. I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Vice and Aiko reach the front of the train and enter the carriage. Fina is shocked to see them. The soldiers guarding her attack. This counts as a boss, but it's not too hard. For me, at least. I think they do have a heal spell, so depending on how things go, I could see it getting annoying.
Yeah, I was trying to engage with the mechanics, and I was dying a lot. I didn't ever die and have to like restart, but it was really, really rough while Vice was alive, and I was trying to like engage with things. And then Vice died, and I was like, well, I'll just go out swinging. And I was using my fire box, my Pyre box, instead of like skills. And that was kicking ass and like easily dealt with them. And I'm like, oh, I should have just cheesed the whole fight. I shouldn't have been trying to like use moves in all of these things. I'll just spam the firebox.
Why use weapons and skills when you can use items?
Mm-hmm. It was in this fight where I after Vice died, I was like, shit, like this sucks. Where can I get a Phoenix down? And turns out this is not a Final Fantasy where you run your crew ragged and you use Phoenix Downs at the end of every fight. This is a Dragon Quest in which you get a revive spell as an in-game bonus, and you should just try to not die until then, which is good to know because most games are Final Fantasies and you just go buy a reviving balm or a Phoenix Down or a smelling salts or whatever, but they don't got those this time around.
As far as I can tell, there is one revival item that you can acquire by this point in the game, and it's hard to get.
Yeah, no. I would... The way I think of it, it's like, I don't think this is like a punishing system, but this is definitely not as lax as some Final Fantasy games are. And not in a sense of like, oh, well, you should just go grind more. It's like, you need to like think through what you're doing, and the punishment for doing poorly is heavy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So 2 episodes in, we now thoroughly disagree with the idea that this game was too easy and deserves a difficulty patch.
Yes. No.
Yeah, game is not too easy. I don't think it's too hard personally, but it's definitely not too easy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It just, because the systems are so simple, it makes you think about the simple systems and you can't just coast. So it's adequately hard. It uses its simple systems well.
Mm-hmm. So, one way or another, we defeat those soldiers. As Aika unties her, Fina asks why they came here. Vice says, "Why do you think? We're here to rescue you. Because we're boyfriend and girlfriends." Fina is overwhelmed by emotion, but the touching scene is cut short by Galcian entering the carriage. Galcian guarantees the lives of the pirates and Fina if they hand her over. Vice says, "Never!" Galcian says they'll never be able to fly the skies freely after this. Vice says they're air pirates. They don't need his permission for anything. Galcian says he must destroy them. But then the Little Jack appears outside the train. The cannons fire on the carriage and somehow cleanly cut it in two.
Does this make sense at all? No. Is it amazing? Yes!
Yes.
Absolutely.
Our heroes are left on one side of the carriage and Galcian on the other, saving them. Our heroes board the Little Jack. Drachma has joined the party. They speed towards the gate, but it's closing. And some Valuan cruisers are attacking. We have another ship battle, then a cutscene as they head for the gate, and it's like, oh man, are they gonna make it? They make it!
Yay.
Our heroes have successfully escaped Valua. They set sail for Pirate Isle, which I guess is safe, and Valua won't just attack it again?
I was thinking the same thing. I don't know.
Maybe they moved it. It's not attached to anything. It's just a floating island. Anyway, we get a brief scene of Galcian just standing on the bisected train, and it rules.
It's very good.
Back on Pirate Isle, Fina again thanks our heroes. Vice asks why the Empire was after her. Maybe they can help. Fina decides to trust them. Time for a lore dump. Fina is a Sylvite, a descendant of the Silver Civilization. Hundreds of generations ago, the world was divided into 6 civilizations, one under each moon: green, red, blue, purple, yellow, and silver. The world went through a technological revolution as these civilizations harnessed the powers of these moons. But the civilization's leaders hungered for war and created the Gigas, gigantic living weapons capable of destroying whole islands. The Gigas were unleashed when the civilizations went to war, but then the rains of destruction fell. No one knows why, but moonstones started falling like a rainstorm for what seemed like an eternity, killing millions, leveling cities, and destroying the corrupt civilizations. But even without the rains of destruction, the Gigas would have destroyed the world anyway. Now, the Valuan Empire seeks to reawaken the Gigas. That's bad! There are 6 moonstones, which are each used to control one of the Gigas. Fina's quest is to gather them and stash them somewhere Valua can't get them, a plan which I am sure cannot backfire. Fina asks Vice and Ica to join her quest. Without her ship, she can't do it, but with their help, maybe she can. Of course, they answer yes to the quest and adventure. Of course, they don't have a ship either, and at no point in this scene do they, ask Drachma if they can keep using the Little Jack. But I guess I just assume he'll keep helping them. He's standing right there in the background of the scene the whole time, but doesn't say anything.
It weirdly enhances the polyamorous throuple aspect of this, just because it is just like these 3 are having this conversation. Drachma's just like, well, I guess I'm their taxi service.
He's their friend who has a car.
Exactly.
Fina then reveals Cupel, a shape-shifting magic blob of mercury, which usually takes the form of a bracelet around her wrist, so we don't have to put him in cutscenes. Spoiler, Cupel is her weapon in battle, and you've got to collect things to power it up. Anyway, Fina has joined the party. Next week, they'll set sail to find the moon crystals. And adventure.
Awesome, but not this week. Let's listen to some more music from Skies of Arcadia, and then we'll talk about our memorable moments. So the one that I had earlier, as you were saying it, I realized that they did a cool thing, because my lower Valua was not the one that you said. So you can do those things in lower Valua out of order, and if you are an RPG kid and you go to the inn first, you get all of the I'm exhausted, I would just want to sit down, we can figure stuff out later scenes. And then Drachma comes in and is like, yeah, you'll want to be well rested because all of your friends are going to die tomorrow. And you're like, wait, what the fuck? And then you learn all of that stuff then. And then if you go back to sleep in the inn during the my friends are dying dungeon. You get there and it's like, oh, do you want to spend the night? And you click yes, and you go you rest, and you come out and they're like, wait, was that enough rest for you? Implying you didn't spend the night because you don't have enough time. You just rested for a second to heal your HP, and then you went back out there. And so the inn exists and is real and is not just a Pokemon Center, which is
I
kind
really
of cool.
like that.
I was wondering if there was another way that scene could play out, because the guy who tells you about the execution is sort of out of the way, and you can totally just go to the inn without talking to him, theoretically. So I was wondering what would happen if you did that.
Yep. And I was super surprised when I went in to just heal, and then I got a cutscene, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Was this what I was supposed to do? And then having Drachma come in and like drop it on us was very, very cool and interesting. And it's even cooler hearing that you can do that at least 2 different ways. There might even be other out of order things to do, which is pretty dope.
It is indeed.
Another one that I love is when someone joins your party, it says Drachma joins the party. Then when they leave your party, they say they leave the party. And then when Drachma came back, it said Drachma joins the party. ... again. And then when he leaves, he goes Drachma left the party. ... again. And it was sassy, and I loved it.
It was very sassy.
I didn't put that in my notes because I was like, yeah, Sam's gonna want to say that in memorable moments. That's his kind of humor.
It is. But those are the only 2 that I wrote down. I screenshot one on my Steam Deck, and I have no idea where those screenshots go. If I can find them, I will bring it up. But someone else can go.
I had a couple. It's just kind of minor visual elements. I really enjoy. There's that one section, the lowest section of the catacombs, where you get to an area where the floor is gone in some spaces, and so you just see the roiling thunder clouds under you, and it really just gets like, yeah, you're in catacombs on a floating island. This is not a safe place to be. It's a very neat environmental detail.
That section of the catacombs is burned in my brain from childhood.
I could understand why. Let's see. I mentioned before there's like there being another kind of One Piece-esque kind of thing this besides the Admiral meeting, and that's just like the entire train situation. There's a scene in a very famous arc of One Piece that is very, you're on a train, you're at the back, you're on the roof, your friend has been captured, is in the front car, go get him. And it was just giving me strong vibes in that direction. Not necessarily positive, but just like the level. I don't think I really liked the scene with the Empress, if only because like I can enjoy cartooniness. I like a lot of silly things, but the level of her one-dimensional evilness contrasted with her son being like, "But mother, that's bad." It not only felt just really like silly in how one-dimensional it was, but like the fact that like, okay, these are supposed to be mother and son. He should know that she's evil by this point, right? Like, why is he acting like he's never met her before? And yeah, I don't know, like that scene just felt very odd to me. The entire area, it was just like you compare it to Midgard. I still have not played Final Fantasy VII. From what I understand, there's some, interesting commentary on capitalism and classism and things in there. This was just not that, which is fine. It was a fun thing where we break into an area for an evil empire, but like it's done so over the top and one dimensionally that there's not a lot of content here, to the point where I would say like the only really interesting thing in that direction thematically is the way they do the upper and lower areas, the fact that they're both facing each other, so if you're in one you can look across to see the other. I think that is interesting, just in the sense of like that means the people in the slums can just look over and see people in the high life, and all the rich people can just look across and sneer down at the poor people. Like, that works. That's actually kind of interesting. They don't really do anything with it, but it's neat. But yeah, like aside from those things, the only other memorable moment I had is just my favorite move is absolutely Aika's was it Ika? Oh god, I'm forgetting her name now. Is it Aika or Aya?
Aika.
Aika's Lambda burst. First, partially just because it's it hits everyone and on regular enemies. It's an easy way to clear the screen. But also just whenever you use it, she's just fire, consume my enemies. Lambda burst is just excellent. Like, yes, I will listen to her say that a million times, and I will not get tired of it. In general, the super moves are just so fun, which I think is partially another reason why I don't use magic as often, is because the super moves are just not only less resource intensive, but they're just more fun.
And if you have 3 people in your party, Aika's other one, the one we talked about last
Delta
week,
Storm?
the one that Delta Storm, that blasts in a line. If you're lucky on placement and you have 3 people in your party, you start with 4 force points or whatever, and you just you do that, and you have a turn 1 win, and
it's
that's
strong.
great. It feels good. Yeah.
The guide I'm following to make sure I get everything, it has been like, Ike is not that useful at this point in the game. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just gave her more moonberries than they think is optimal, but I'm glad I gave her those moonberries because her super moves are really good.
Like, her basic attacks don't hit as hard as Vice or Drachma, but yeah, her special attacks are good.
Yeah, her special moves are good, and then also, I mean, comparatively, it's like Drachma and Vice have good like one-on-one moves, but those are good for bosses in a random encounter. It's Aika's super moves that are going to be the ones that are the most useful.
Yeah.
Any memorable moments from you, Bernard?
So, one fun thing that we didn't mention last week is that the boss music changes based on how you're doing in the battle. If you're kicking ass and the boss is low on health and you're high on health, it like goes into high gear, heroic music playing, it changes. But if you're all on low health, different music comes in that's like, oh shit, things are bad music. It's a nice touch. And also there's a system that we didn't talk about last week. I'm trying to remember what exactly it is called. It's like your pirate ranking or something. Swashbuckler ranking.
I don't even remember seeing that.
So my understanding is that there are various things that contribute to your swashbuckler rating, but basically the main thing is that throughout the game you have dialogue choices which don't affect the story but are important to the characterization of Vice, and each one has a correct answer, which is like the most in character answer for Vice, the most true pirate hero answer. And it's sort of an interesting system because it's interesting trying to tease out what is considered the correct choice in these situations. And it's not always like the most gung-ho save the day choice. Sometimes the correct choice is retreat or something.
It's very much like, what's the best thing for a pirate captain to be doing, and sometimes that is heroics, and sometimes it's just like, no, we got to cut our losses and get out of here. I think it's a really cool system. Where do you see your swashbuckler rating? Like, where is that on the menu?
So I think you have to go back to Sailor's Island after finishing up your little quest there. I think you have to go back there and talk to the Sailors Guild again. But I think after you do that, then if you go into the menu and open Vice's like profile, it'll say Vice the Cowardly or whatever, and that gets
that's
better as you
fun.
go.
I like that. That's fun.
Yeah. It's a fun little system, and one reason I wanted to bring it up is there's a funny scene where when the Arc Whale is there, Ike is like, Vice, what do we do? And the correct option is retreat, because yeah. But one of the options is attack it. And I didn't choose this because I'm smart. But I'm watching a long play to take my notes and make sure I get everything. And in the long play, they chose attack it. And Ike is like, what the fuck are you talking about? We don't have any cannons. What are you going to do? 10,000 Cutlass Furies? Cutlass Fury is the name of his basic super move.
Yeah.
It's good.
Oh, yeah. That's like one of the few times I chose the wrong one, because I chose the, like, I don't know. How am I supposed to know what to do?
I mean, fair.
I like this
So I found the one. Me too. I found the one that I had screenshotted. I still don't know how to access my screenshots on the Steam Deck. Everyone says that they should just sync to your account, and that is not true.
It doesn't work on emulated games.
That makes sense. But so when Marco is eavesdropping and you run outside to catch him, he's up on the roof. And Aika is like, hey, Vice, need a lift? And she leans down to give him like a foothold, and she just chunks him up to the roof. And
she's real strong.
She's real strong. And like, so like in Dungeons and in Dragons, there are two different ways to do a campaign. You can start a campaign at level 1 where everybody kind of sucks and it's about learning to not suck as an adventurer, or you can have some that start at level 5 where like you can get all of that stuff out of the way. Everyone has their own backstory. They've kind of done their own thing. And Vice and Ica are a campaign starting at level 5. They already have the rapport, they already have like skills, they're already competent pirates, competent adventurers. It's definitely not like we to bring up One Piece multiple times. One Piece starts with Luffy being like, well, I don't even have a ship, so I'm going to hide in this barrel and be a pirate of this barrel and just see what happens from here. Definitely starting as a level 1 pirate, and Vice and Ica aren't doing that. Breaking in, disrupting the Colosseum was like a Monday for them. They knew how to do it. That wasn't a hard thing to accomplish. They just had to know how to get in, and then they did the heist because they know how to do it because they're not level 1 pirates, and it's pretty cool.
I will agree in the sense of pirating, and I definitely agree. Like the way you're summarizing their characters, I agree, and I really like that. I'm going to dispute saying that Luffy starts off at level 1 in One Piece.
He's very strong.
He's very strong. Literally, like, one of the things I think is so fun about One Piece is like him and Zoro specifically do not encounter an enemy that actually really challenges them basically until the Alabasta arc. It is not until Crocodile that they fight someone. It's like, oh, I'm gonna have to try now. Like, they're over leveled, but yes, when it comes to life skills, they have nothing.
Yeah, I specifically meant their pirate level, not their
pirate level.
Their combat level. Yes.
Yes.
Their swashbuckler rank thing is pretty low. Their physical prowess, they're level 20 barbarians and level 20 fighters. They're not level 20 pirates.
This is true. Okay.
I need to read more One Piece.
You should. It's almost out. It's gonna be ending in the next couple of years, probably.
So they say.
This arc has been really good so far.
Mm-hmm. There was another thing I really liked in the portion this week is there's some dude in Sailor Island that has character design that might be important later, but right now he's not. And at the time, I was like, "What do you mean? This is my third like quest here, and I haven't talked to any of the people with character design. What's going on?" But then when you get to the big city, they just don't reuse character models very often. Like everybody gets like at least mid-level side character design in this game. The merchants, the three of them that you deal with, they all share either share a model or like share parts of their model. They're very similar looking, but the average like schmucks in the rich side, it's like all the rich ladies have a different model. All of the pirate crew members on Dine's crew that you save, they all have different character models. Like there's very few reused assets, which is really cool and definitely not a thing that you saw in the year 2000.
Yeah, it's nuts, the production scale of this game.
And I think it's actually it's helped by the fact that, at least in terms of not reusing character models, that like these areas you're exploring aren't very big. They're usually 1 or 2 screens, and of those screens, there's only like at most 4 people in an area. Like there's not that many people, and so I think I could see how they're able to just be like, okay, well, each person gets basically their own unique character model.
One funny thing that I just remembered is on Sailor's Island, there is a little guy named Pinta, I believe is his name.
Oh, yeah.
And in the Dreamcast version, you go up and talk to him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm an adventurer," and you're like, "Hey, I'm an adventurer too." And they talk for a bit, and he's like, "I go on adventures in your visual memory unit, and you can do this whole mini game with me." Blah blah blah, and it's this huge thing. But then in the GameCube version, it's funny because they just talk to each other, and it's like, I'm an adventurer too, and they talk for a bit, build up a rapport, then it's like, well, bye. I don't have anything for you. GameCube don't have VNUs.
That explains what was going on with that guy. Okay.
Yeah, the other VMU mini game has to deal with Cupel or whatever. He acts as a compass for some shit or whatever, and that one they put on screen, but they cut Pinta. They couldn't make it work. So he's gone.
Yes, the things you collect to power up Cupel, like the VMU, I think would beep or something if you got close, but they did something else in the GameCube version.
Anything else you want to bring up before we wrap up this episode?
I like that Drachma is a fairly higher level than Weiss and Ica. When you meet him, you'll probably be level 7 and he'll be like level 12. I like it. I like when characters who would make sense to be higher level are higher level. And there's going to be something cool with that next week.
I mean, I was going to say, because I checked the menu before I saved, and I think it's a cool thing in the reverse of the fact that our new party member is at level 1.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Fina joins the party at level 1.
That's so cool.
Also, things must be kind of rough in the Silver Civilization if they're sending out a level 1 person to do this all by themselves. They must not have a lot of options. But luckily, she made friends who are going to help.
Friends, TM.
Friends, very good friends.
A gal pal and a gal pal and I'm not sure what the guy version of gal pal is. Boy toy?
Bro.
I don't know why. I just feel like I look at Vice and I'm like, in this throuple dynamic, he is the like, yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that'll do it for the week. If you like what you heard, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where you can donate to help us pay for hosting costs, game costs, and the current fell beast Adobe subscription costs. I wish you could buy software still, but
no one can buy software anymore. It's not how it works.
Nope. But in return for helping us out, you can join one of 3 different reward tiers. We have the Gadabout tier, which is everyone who pays $1 or more a month. This will get you access to our Book Club no Kiseki episodes a month before everyone else, and it lets you vote on our polls whenever they go live. The Warrior tier is for everyone who pays $5 or more a month, and it also gets their name shouted out at the end of every episode, much like this. Shoutouts to Floris, Kildron, Freddie Rodriguez, Ron524, Vimk, Jfro Prime, and Doho. And then finally, we have the Luminary tier, which is for everyone who loves us so much they want to give us $20 or more a month, where they also get a 1-sentence shout out to whatever they want, be it a social URL or just a silly sentence. So shout outs to Eliza Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, which is an aggregator for games criticism and journalism, and also to Carr, who is a dentist, and so he's not shouting out his Twitch stream, he's shouting out your own mouth. He says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly the time right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm Trish.
Toodaloo, folks.
Bye.